Sunshine's not particularly strong at this time of year, so we're only looking at temperatures peaking in the high single digits. See you later.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Want to be one of 2 lucky Great British giveaway winners? That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Aaron McLean, the goal machine here, used to play for Peterborough United. You bagged loads of goals for them back in the day. But I've got a bone to pick with you, young man. You scored at the City ground against Nottingham Forest for, was it Hull City?
For Hull City, yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, that was my job, unfortunately. I must say, that was actually one of my favourite goals.
Was it really?
Because I remember, obviously, playing at the City ground, unbelievable stadium, historic.
It is great.
So, and we beat you 1-0.
OK, no need to rubbish it. These sports clubs, whether it's football or rugby or whatever, should offer 2 alternatives. Either a professional footballer, or if you don't quite make it, you can still go and play football at a lower level, but have a career as well, maybe be an electrician or a plumber.
100%. You know, listen, I've had multiple conversations with various different people, whether it's the PFA or whether it's clubs. Even players who do have careers, you know, there's so many that don't make it and don't quite make it to the level, or only play at a lower level. There's so many that do have long careers, but once you come to the end of that, you've spent, you know, for me, I spent 20 years as a professional footballer. Once I finished playing, what do you then do for the rest of your life? You know, at 35, once you retire, you still have to have a purpose in life. Yeah. But I'd almost be starting from ground zero. I'm fortunate that I went into coaching and then went into the media.
That's good.
But for every one of me, there's hundreds that don't. And I've got so many friends who, I've got to say, you know, have really, really struggled on the, you know, mental health side.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because you go from, like, playing in stadiums, big stadiums, small stadiums, crowds, singing your name, and all that sort of stuff, that adulation, the buzz of winning games, and, you know, the downs of losing games, and you go from that to sort of nothing when you finish. I mean, that's a big come down there.
It's a huge come down.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A very good morning to you. I'm Sophie Reaper alongside the fabulous Adam Cherry this morning for Saturday Morning Live. Here we are.
Here we are, and as ever, great to have your company this morning. And as always, another action-packed show for you this week.
It is indeed. We've got some breaking news overnight from America and another aviation tragedy. A medical plane carrying 6 passengers, including a child, has crashed in Philadelphia. That comes, of course, after an American Airlines flight collided with an Army helicopter over Washington, D.C. earlier in the week, killing 67 people. We'll be bringing you all the latest on that tragic story.
And this morning is the funeral of celebrated pop legend Linda Nolan, which is taking place in Blackpool today. Our reporter Jack Carson is there as mourners begin to gather.
Well, people are lining the streets quite literally here to remember who's been described as the Queen of Blackpool. Linda Nolan will arrive in pure showbiz style with a pink and glittery coffin. I'll have more details from Blackpool.
Now we'll go back to Jack throughout the show. We'll also have a new study that has found that calorie labels on menus is a cause for concern for people with eating disorders. We'll have a TikTok star who's recovering from an eating disorder join us to share why she's firmly against that move.
And happy Lunar New Year. Wednesday marked the start of the year of the wood snake. We'll be joined by someone who will join the annual London parade later today, and they'll also be bringing some traditional treats for us to share. Yes,
very
fantastic.
excited about that. And we'll have all of the day's top stories with former Conservative advisor Laura McKevitt and political commentator Nikki Hodgson. There they are.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
Well, we say it every week, don't we?
Yeah.
We say it every week. It's an action-packed show, but this week it really does feel.
Oh my!
We better get a move on because
there's
lots
to get in, particularly
Indeed.
the second hour. I won't spoil it, but we've got a real treat for you. Now,
but it is a big question, isn't it? Did you make it through January?
Well, yes, I made it through.
We survived.
We survived it, but the thing is, I didn't really have any New Year's resolutions in the same way that you did. I mean, we just talked to Stephen and
yes.
about that, didn't we?
Yeah,
so you're powering through.
I'm powering through, but obviously January is the one. Dry January, January. Did you make it through? Are you still on with your New Year's resolutions? We want to hear from you about that. But we're also going to be talking about Lunar New Year, aren't we? So we want to know what year you are. We're both Year of the Ox.
That's right.
So tell us all about that, and you can send that in by visiting gbnews.com/your say.
But before we do anything else, as always, Sam Francis has all your news headlines.
Adam, Sophie, thank you very much indeed, and good morning to you just after 10 o'clock. Well, the top story this morning, fears are rising that new US tariffs on its top 3 trade partners could spark a trade war. From today, imports from Mexico and Canada are set to face a 25% tax, while Chinese goods will be hit with a 10% levy. The White House says the tariffs target illegal fentanyl distribution and tackle migration concerns. But Canada, Mexico and China have already vowed to retaliate. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has warned the the European Union could also face tariffs next. Well, President Donald Trump has warned that the EU could, as I say, face those tariffs, and here's what he had to say.
The European Union charges us 20% plus a VAT tax, called a VAT tax, very similar, and it costs us an absolute fortune. We are treated so badly, and we have a tremendous deficit with the European Union, so we'll be doing something very substantial.
And staying with news in the United States, a medical plane has crashed in a crowded Philadelphia neighbourhood, killing all 6 people on board, including, sadly, a young patient and her mother. The jet rescue air ambulance erupted into a fireball just 30 seconds after takeoff, engulfing several homes in flames. An investigation is now underway, with officials from the National Transport Safety Board on the scene. It comes just days after another plane collided with a US Army helicopter near Washington, D.C., killing 64 people on board and 3 on the helicopter. Back here at home, Richard Tice says Reform UK MP won't be suspended despite a past assault conviction for kicking his former girlfriend. He argues that James McDermott is a shining example of someone who made a mistake but grew and succeeded. The conviction was not disclosed when McDermott was elected, but surfaced after court records revealed he served 21 days in a young offenders institution. Richard Tice insists that Reform's vetting process has improved despite past failures, calling it better and better. The Met Police are deploying extra officers in London as opposing protests over Tommy Robinson are set to clash. Robinson supporters will march from Waterloo Station to Whitehall, while anti-racism protesters head from Piccadilly to Trafalgar Square. Police say pedestrian access will be restricted and people should avoid the area if they're not involved. It comes as Robinson is currently serving an 18-month prison sentence for breaching a High Court injunction. The Met says officers are prepared to intervene swiftly if any disorder breaks out. Sir Keir Starmer is being accused of fudging the facts about his education by the founder of social mobility charity, the Sutton Trust. Sir Peter Lampall claims the Labour leader pretends that Reigate Grammar was a state school when it became private during his time there. He argues the government's plan to tax private school fees is regressive and is warning it will deprive children of key opportunities. But a government spokesperson says the tax will bring an estimated £1.7 billion a year for state schools and improve standards and hiring of more teachers. And a breaking update on the situation in the Middle East. Hamas and Israel have now exchanged more hostages and prisoners today in the fourth swap of a fragile ceasefire ongoing in Gaza. In Tel Aviv earlier, supporters were seen clapping and throwing their hands in the air as they watched the last of 3 hostages cross the border into Israel this morning. Meanwhile, in exchange, 182 Palestinian prisoners are currently being freed. Buses carrying those released Palestinian prisoners from Israeli prisons have just, in the last few minutes, arrived in the West Bank. The release comes as Gaza's Rafah crossing has reopened for the first time, allowing injured Palestinians into Egypt. And family and friends are gathering to celebrate Linda Nolan's remarkable life at the funeral service for her in Blackpool this morning. The public are welcome to attend the service at St Paul's Church in around half an hour's time. Linda both married her husband and said goodbye to him in 2007. Her sister Anna said seating will, of course, be limited because she is such a treasure, but that people are welcome to stand. The Nolans have described Linda as a symbol of hope, humour and resilience. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in the next hour. Now, though, it's over to Saturday Morning Live.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Now to the US. Another aviation tragedy overnight, this time in Philadelphia, after a medical plane carrying 6 passengers, including a child, has crashed.
Yes, this comes just days after an American Airlines flight collided with an Army helicopter over Washington, D.C., killing 67 people.
The medical jet crashed within minutes of taking off. It plummeted into a highly populated area of northern Philadelphia, setting multiple homes and cars on fire. Well, joining us now is aviation expert Sally Geffen to tell us more. Sally, what do we know about this story so far? What's happened here?
So it was an aircraft called a Learjet, which was a medical ambulance aircraft, and it had a few passengers on board, and it had only just taken off. And in fact, the tracking data shows that it was merely 40 seconds, that's less than a minute, between takeoff and it actually crashing back down to the ground. It hit the ground at such velocity. It was something like 183 feet a second. And it formed this massive impact and a huge explosion, and apocalyptic scenes, in fact, were being experienced and witnessed by local residents. This was a densely populated area, and people were running, feared for their lives. There are reports of some injuries on the ground as well. And obviously this causes shockwaves in the United States, which has come 2 incidents now within around 48 hours, barely 2 to 3 days, and very early into the Trump presidency and very early into the new year.
We're just looking at pictures now for any of our viewers that are at home. We're looking at some images from America after that crash overnight. How have we ended up in a situation where it seems that this kind of incident is becoming much more frequent? It's terrifying, isn't it, for anyone who's going to travel by air?
Well, I have to admit, you know, I've been covering these stories frequently now over the festive period as well. This is the third, with the DC crash, that's the third major incident globally. I'm not saying in the United States, globally in the last 30-odd days. And now we have this. It is a much more smaller incident, but it is no less tragic for those who have been affected. Now, having said all that, travel is very, very safe, and the United States in particular has had almost an unblemished safety record till the last week, which proves how safe it is. And the United States is the leading nation in terms of air travel and air transport. And here in Europe, a very similar situation as well. So it's a very minuscule amount, but no less worrying when we see these incidents of this magnitude.
And Sally, what we're hearing about those on board this today is just even more tragic, perhaps, because we learn that there was a child on board this plane who had just been in the US for life-saving medical treatment, and now, of course, this accident has taken place. It just makes it even worse in a way, doesn't it? What can you tell us about those on board the aircraft? What do we know so far?
Yeah, so as you just said, those on board the aircraft were actually being supported in a medical clinical capacity and also in a charitable capacity as well. And as you say, there were passengers on board that had been sponsored and supported for health issues. And yeah, that adds to the horrible tragedy of all of it. I will say that in terms of the collision or the impact on the ground, one of the worrying signs for those who witnessed it was the sheer velocity of the way it came down. And this is spurring people on to jump to very big conclusions about it, especially on the heels of the other incident. I think what's happening now is more and more is coming out. The DC crash is being unpacked almost day by day. We're getting updates all the time. But I think in the weeks and months ahead, this will slow down as each investigation, there will be a full investigation. This latest one also takes months and months eventually to reach a full conclusion.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Sally. Just tragic, isn't it? And of course, it could have been worse, couldn't it? Because it's a densely populated area. Yeah. In fact, they're quite fortunate that there weren't more people involved, although Sally did say there were injuries on the ground, so I'm sure that will continue to develop.
When you just look at some of the footage we were showing on air.
Terrifying,
yeah,
isn't
appalling, appalling. Yeah, and so soon after the last incident as well. It's just really tragic.
Well, we're going to take a look at our top stories of the day now. So we're delighted to be joined by former Conservative advisor Lauren McEvett and political commentator Nikki Hodgson. Good morning, ladies.
Morning. Good morning,
Thank you very
both.
much for joining us. What do you make of this crash? Second one in just a few days. Tragic, isn't it?
It's so tragic, but it's also, I guess, just coincidence, is it? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to kind of read into it that it's a signal that all kind of aviation has a massive problem in the US. I think it's just really poor timing. But every accident like this is a tragedy.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think without the first very large crash with that passenger jet happening earlier in the week, the second crash may not be getting quite as much airtime in the international press as it currently is. The fact they've come along together, I believe, is probably more coincidence than anything else. But you know, there are problems within aviation in the United States. There's an enormous class action lawsuit against the FAA over DEI hiring practices over the last decade, and indications that may have impacted upon the talent pool that they were drawing from. But as the investigation goes on, which will probably take a while, it is very clear that they've made the right decision in closing that helicopter corridor. They've closed 2 helicopter corridors around the airport in DC in order to try and prevent this from happening again.
Now, we're going to move on because we want to look at the newspapers this morning. What's caught your eyes, guys? Where do we want to start today?
I think we're starting with the Times. Long-term sick facing crackdown on benefits. PM will curb £65 billion bill with back-to-work push, which I think is interesting. Obviously, this is not something that I'm against. I think this is, you know, an area where the government should not be funding as many people as it currently is. However, I think that part of the problem we have here is a collapse in the medical system in the United Kingdom. Right. And without drawing those two strands together in government planning, you're just going to punish people who at the moment cannot solve a problem in order to get back into the workforce. And then you have a third element that's drawn into this, which is the new employers' rights bill that's going through at the moment, if it suddenly becomes harder to let staff go, what you're going to find is business unwilling to take on new staff, particularly staff they may deem to be high risk who are going through medical treatment at the time and declaring that up front. All of that is going to create a contraction in the labour market, none of which is good.
Yeah, well, particularly given the impact of the budget as well, which makes it more difficult to hire new people because it's more expensive.
This is just the employers.
There's only one part of it,
the employee rights and sort of employment law section of this. There's the entire economic section of this separately, with national insurance contributions being raised and taxes on businesses going up. And, you know, this is something where, I mean, we've picked a couple of other stories about growth this morning. The government does not appear to be matching its narrative about going for growth with the policies that could actually see that happening, including how it is they invest in the human capital of this country. An enormous chunk of the people on out-of-work benefits need better access to the mental health system.
Nikki, I want to bring you in there, because this is one of those stories that's kind of divide opinion, isn't it? Because we're saying here in the Times that hundreds of thousands of people could have their sickness benefit payments reduced. So all those hundreds of thousands of people are going to say, well, what are we supposed to do then? What is the alternative? Well, then, as you were rightly saying, on the other side, we need to save money somewhere. So
yeah, I mean, it's fascinating because obviously the Tories pushed this so hard when they were in power that they desperately wanted to cut the welfare bill down, specifically around health benefits. But we have a massive problem in this country with not understanding how mental health actually affects people and not funding the care for people. It takes months. If you go to the GP and you say you're suicidal, it takes months to get a referral to a psychiatrist. I mean, I have bipolar. I deal with the mental health services frequently, and they're atrocious. I mean, and that's not because the people in them are not doing a good job. It's because the wait times are appalling, you know. And I'm a person that's able to advocate for myself and, you know, get the treatment I need, but it takes months and months and months to even get a medication review, for example. So, you know, if you're a person that is suffering from deep depression, somebody just saying, we're going to cut your benefits, you have to get a job, that isn't going to help, that isn't going to work. You're going to have more people on the breadline, more people going after these kind of basic services. So it isn't good planning.
And this is before we get to the issue around people who have long-term disabilities, you know, the use of a wheelchair, etc., for whom benefits that come from the state are not in order to make, you know, life better. There is a cost of living increase associated with disabilities of that nature, and this is to basically level the playing field with able-bodied people who don't have that kind of expense associated with them. And I think that yes, the bill needs to come down, but there isn't enough planning going on in the rest of government to understand how to do that in a way that doesn't negatively impact people in this country.
Ladies, we're going to leave it there now because I think we can go live to Blackpool, where we're seeing live images of the hearse at the funeral of Linda Nolan as that is getting underway. I believe we can bring you that now. You can maybe see anyone watching on television in the back of the hearse. As we were told, that coffin is pink and glittery. The family saying that to reflect her wonderful personality, arriving at St Paul's Church there in Blackpool, which, of course, was where Linda had her wedding as well. So I imagine an incredibly special location for the family.
Absolutely, and you can see, those watching on television will see the number of people there from just the public, all that road covered with people who are trying to, hoping to attend that service. And as we heard earlier, seating inside will be limited because there are just so many people there. But a very sad scene, but of course a celebration of her life, as Jack said to us earlier today.
Yes, indeed. And we're going to be bringing you the latest from Blackpool at Linda Nolan's funeral throughout the rest of the morning. And we'll have the rest of your showbiz news as well with Steph Tetchy.
This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts. Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. So it's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact-checkers. Fact-checkers in inverted commas, it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They were on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. It's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, you're rejoining us now live in Blackpool because the funeral of singer and TV personality Linda Nolan is now getting underway imminently at St Paul's Church in Blackpool.
Yes, Lyndon passed away a couple of weeks ago at the age of 65 after a long battle with cancer.
Yes, some famous faces such as Kerry Katona, Paul Chuckle and John Coughlin are set to attend the funeral. We're seeing those arrivals at St Paul's Church now, people entering the church. Of course, the family have said that all are welcome, although there will be lots of families, so seating in St Paul's will be limited.
Yeah, I mean, you can see from there just how busy it is, and we said just before the break, people queuing all the way up the road and around the block.
Fans and members of the public.
Yeah, well, it's just a testament to how popular she was. Now, we're joined in the studio by Stephanie Tedgy. Stephanie, you're seeing the same pictures we are. Let's just talk a little bit about the life of Linda Nolan and why she was so popular. I mean, look at these scenes. So many people here today.
Adam, she was a household name, and I think the public feel like they've been on this journey with the Nolan sisters, in particular Linda, from being a musical star, then moving into musical theatre. Then over the past 20 years, we've been through with her on this journey on her battle with cancer, and she's been very open about it. And I think that's why there's been this outpouring of grief and celebration for Linda Nolan, because, of course, she knew that she was going to die from cancer, and she had been planning her funeral, actually, from 2007 when she beat it the first time.
Wow.
So one thing she requested was the pink sparkly coffin, which we will be seeing, because for
just
her...
out of shot to the left for any of our viewers watching on television. We just can't see the back. That's the back of the hearse there, where, of course, the pallbearers will eventually take the coffin from the hearse into St Paul's. Steph, I want to talk a bit about her legacy.
Yes.
Of course, famous for being part of the Nolan sisters, but so much more than that.
So much more than that, indeed. You know, some people will know her from her stint on Celebrity Big Brother, but more than anything, beyond the reality side of things, she was about charity and raising money. It's incredible, Sophie, that she raised £20 million for various charities over the years. And I think, you know, people do know her for music.
We're going to stop there, Steph, because I think we can go live to our reporter now, Jack Carson, who's there for us, and he can bring us the latest, as I think the coffin is being carried now into St Paul's. I think we can go to Jack Carson now.
You can hear the applause from the crowd that have gathered here, the applause that you can hear in the background. She's been described as the Queen of Blackpool. So many members of the public wanting to come here to pay their respects, pay their tributes to Linda Nolan, not only the impact that she had on this town, but also across the world of showbiz. The last request, as you can see, was this pink, glittery coffin. She wanted to go out in pure showbiz style. The family of Linda has arrived, all with a pink bow on their outfits, and the amount of people here is just incredible. But it's a testament to the impact that she had. And as we've spoken to multiple people that are here today, mourning her loss, thinking about their memories of Linda, one of the things is how throughout that battle with cancer, which she fought in the early 2000s and then fought again when she was re-diagnosed in 2017, just her spirit through it all. She wanted to live her life to the full. She wanted to help raise money for charities, millions of pounds raised in her name for charities. And today, as part of the funeral, people here attending being asked to donate to charities in her name in order to try and raise money for hospice care as well, which she received in the last few years of her life. You can see there the coffin has entered the church, many members of the public now going in. That was the wish of the family as well, that many members of the public that have come here to pay their respects could also attend the service, and you can see they're going into the church now.
Thank you so much for bringing us that update, Jack. Of course, our reporter Jack Carlson has been there at the church all morning in Blackpool, and I believe earlier on he spoke to Paul Chuckle, one of the Chuckle brothers, about Linda Nolan and how she'll be remembered.
Great memories. She's a great friend. Done pantomime 3 times with her over the years. A beautiful girl. It's just such a shame, you know.
What do you mentioned pantomime. Is that one of the things you'll be thinking as we have that moment of reflection later on? Is that one of the things you'll be thinking about?
I will certainly be thinking about it. Yeah, we almost shared a dressing room with Linda and Brian. You know, Brian was a good friend as well. You know, at least she's with him now.
So as you can see, it's really a celebration of Linda's life. Now, Jack also spoke to Lisa Maffia, member of So Solid crew, earlier on. This is what she had to say.
There's not a time I didn't see her smiling. Even when it was really tough for her, she just carried on smiling. And my mum's a cancer survivor. She's been going through cancer, terminal cancer, for 13 years. And like my mum, Linda was so positive. And I feel that's the only thing that gets them through those tough times. So we've got a lesson to learn from Linda, is to just stay positive. And that's really what I can only say about her, is that there was nothing but positivity no matter what.
Well, we can bring our showbiz reporter Steph Tetchy back in now. Steph, it must be so heartwarming for her family to hear things like that about how they always saw her smiling.
And that's it, Sophie. When I think of times I've met Linda Nolan before, there was always a smile on her face. And you think for someone who was going through secondary breast cancer, you would think most celebrities would want to hide from the public and keep it as a very private affair. But actually, no, she brought the public into it, because if you think about it, the Nolan sisters have been in the public periphery from the 70s. So we've very much been on this journey with them. And this is why today it's a big showbiz affair, because, you know, she could have said, oh, we just want it to be private. But one thing what Lisa Maffia said, it's that resilience that she had, and I think that's where the inspiration comes, and that's why there's just been this outpouring of support for the Nolan sisters. Of course, this isn't the first sister that they've lost to cancer. They lost Bernie about 10 years ago, so for them as a family, they're very much loved in the public, but of course they've also been plagued by such tragedies.
Steph, let's talk a little bit about the charity work that she and her sisters have done over the years. It's such a testament to their work, I think, today, seeing the images of all those people there. What did that mean for the local community, raising all that money and being so prominent?
Well, I would like to call Linda, like, the Queen of Blackpool, because she had over about 1,000 stage performances in Blackpool. A legend. Absolutely legend. To be honest, I don't know how many showbiz stars I can say have clocked that amount, especially in somewhere like Blackpool. but it's just a charity work. £20 million is not no small figure. And even for today, they're saying people who are watching, please donate to the Trinity Hospice, because when you do have a loved one going through such a battle, it's all about research into these things. And the reason why it's so incredible and inspirational about Linda is she survived cancer twice until now.
I think we can go now to some more live pictures from outside St Paul's in Blackpool. This now, I believe, are just members of the public, fans of Linda Nolan, who are gathered outside the church. They perhaps have been unable to get seats inside the church, as we expected. It's full of close friends and family. But seeing the sheer volume of people gathered outside that church, spending their Saturday morning, coming out to mourn and celebrate the life of Linda Nolan, that must be something family to take away, at least.
It is, and, you know, beforehand, the family put out and they said everyone's welcome to this. Obviously, they did make clear about the seating before. There will be a crematorium after this where she will be cremated. And again, they've said that people are welcome. I know we do tend to fascinate about being a star, but also it's just being a good human being. And I think this is the testament when you can actually inspire people with your talent, but also through your struggles. It's always about the yin and the yang.
So, lastly, Stephanie, what is Linda Nolan's lasting legacy in your view? What part of her career is the most important?
I think Linda Nolan's legacy is just Linda Nolan. I think, obviously, we love the Nolan sisters. When we think about music, there's not many musical families that we can have and think about. So the Nolan sisters have made their dent in the music theatre, in the music world, but also she made her name in musical theatre, but also just how she handled her cancer battle with dignity is one thing that people always remember about her.
And for so long as well, it's really inspirational.
It's a testament.
Well, Stephanie, thank you very much for joining us in the studio, and we'll thank Jack Carson as well for bringing us those live pictures. Now, we'll bring you more from Linda's funeral throughout the show.
But up next, we'll be speaking to one young woman who's speaking out about the inclusion of calorie labels on restaurant menus. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Morning, I'm here with your latest GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's quite a bit of mist, murk and fog around this morning, and for some of us it's going to linger through a fairly large chunk of the day, particularly across some central eastern parts. A lot of thick cloud here, some murkiness to be had, although across the far east of England I am expecting a bit more sunshine to develop this afternoon. Also some sunshine across parts of, well, eastern Scotland, northern England, down through Wales and perhaps the southwest of England too. But elsewhere, largely cloudy, outbreaks of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland with strengthening winds. In the best of the sunshine, not feeling too bad for the time of year. Temperatures just about scraping into double figures towards the southwest of the UK. Looking through into this evening, and for much of Scotland, it is going to be fairly cloudy, perhaps some clear skies towards the east and southeast. Otherwise, a few outbreaks of rain around, winds strengthening, but the wettest, windiest weather is yet to come. A similar story across Northern Ireland, a bit cloudy, and there will be some blustery, at times wet weather. Clearer skies for many parts of northwest England into Wales and perhaps the southwest, but elsewhere largely cloudy as we go through this evening, though some clear skies across parts of East Anglia. That frontal system towards the northwest I highlighted does gradually progress its way eastwards as we go overnight, so turning pretty wet for Northern Ireland and also western Scotland. Elsewhere towards the north and west there will be some outbreaks of rain, but further south and east you are, greater chance you have of staying dry, and some clear skies in the southeast will allow temperatures to drop, so there could be some fog patches, even a touch of frost in some places too. That front makes pretty slow progress gradually eastwards as we go through tomorrow, and so towards the north and west it is going to be a bit damp at times, something a little bit dry and brighter developing across western Northern Ireland later, and all the time staying largely fine and sunny towards the southeast of the UK. That being said, the sunshine is not particularly strong at this time of year, so we're only looking at temperatures peaking in the high single digits. See you later.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, a new study has called calorie-labelled menus in restaurants a cause for concern for those who suffer from eating disorders.
It has indeed. The review found that people with restrictive eating disorders modified their behaviour when presented with the labelled menus and opted for lower calorie dishes. Well, joining us now is content creator Adelaide Saywell. Adelaide, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, I know that you yourself have struggled with eating disorders over the years, and that is what's led you to kind of advocate using your online platform to try and help other people who might be struggling. Do you want to just talk to us a little bit about your story first of all?
Yeah, so I've had an eating disorder since I was younger, and it's kind of flip-flopped between anorexia, bulimia and binge eating disorder. And it was in 2020 that I was officially diagnosed with anorexia, and I started my recovery on the 1st of May of that year. Recovery was really, really difficult. It took me, I'd say, at least a year or two before I really went into recovery for the right reasons. I was kind of in like a quasi-recovery where you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I was quite unwell, and because it was during 2020, it was obviously during COVID, so I didn't have as much support as I could have had, and I had to have therapy, but I had to have it like over Zoom, so they wasn't able to really like talk me through and see me and things like that, which made it really difficult, and not allowed visitors, so it was quite isolating and lonely, which made it even more difficult, and things ended up getting a little bit worse before they started to get better. But I'm doing really good now, which is nice. Anorexia is one of them eating disorders where not very many people can fully recover. You can be like recovered essentially, but it's like it's always going to have the thoughts in the back of your mind, and weight restoration is like the least important part of anorexia recovery. It's more mental than it is about the weight.
Adelaide, I have to just say, first of all, you're so brave for speaking out about what you've suffered and going forward. So thank you so much for being so candid with us.
Thank you.
I want to ask about calories on menus and your thoughts on it. Of course, this study finding that it could have a negative impact on people who are struggling with eating disorders, but I want to get your take on that.
Yeah, so as someone who considers themselves quite far in recovery, if a restaurant has calories on menus, I will avoid them because I will just focus on the number, and I consider myself quite far in recovery. So for other people who might not be as far as I am, or who are just starting recovery, it can be like detrimental to them. It is like a matter of life and death for some people, and the calories on the menus, although for the majority of people who don't have eating disorders might want to see the calories, but it doesn't really affect them in the same way that it affects someone with an eating disorder, because it affects them like 100% of the time, whereas it affects a regular person like almost none of the time. And so when it comes to making the decision of whether to put calories on the menus or not, I think when you have in mind that the people that it is affecting, it's not just a little bit of a, oh, it's fine, like I can get it. It can end up being like life or death for them.
Yeah, Adelaide, I'm interested in your take on the government's response to this, because they say that actually putting calories on the menu is important because it's to fight the obesity crisis in this country. They have a 10-year obesity strategy, and it's important for those people to be able to count calories, actually for health-conscious reasons as well. So is there a bit of a tension there? What do you make of what the government says?
If I'm being completely honest, I think that with the obesity crisis, I don't think it's as big of an issue as people think that it is. And just because somebody is overweight doesn't mean that they're necessarily unhealthy. And when you're measuring weight and health off of a BMI, it's not accurate, because the BMI was obviously created by a mathematician who himself said it's not used as a unit of health. It's not what it's for. And if you're going out to eat, whether you're on a diet or not, and you're like trying to make healthier choices, if you're going out to eat, you're not going out to eat and focusing on the food. You're focusing on the experience of being with your friends, your family, you're celebrating whatever it is you're doing. You're not going out to eat every single night. And a meal out isn't going to affect your diet. It's not going to affect your weight in any way, because it's just one meal. And so I feel like the calories on menus aren't going to make that much of a difference in terms of them watching their weight or making healthier choices, because it's just a one-time, it's like a treat, they're celebrating. Whereas for people in recovery, going out to eat at restaurants regularly is a huge part of that, because that's something that we struggle with and need exposure to. And so when we see the calories on the menu, it can make us fall back into our old habits, and it makes recovery a lot more difficult. So although it can be beneficial, I suppose, for people, but it's more detrimental than it is helpful.
Adelaide, we're almost out of time, but just before we leave you, I want to get your final verdict. If you had a choice, if it were you in government and you got to make the decision, would you make the decision to fully remove them from all menus, or do you think there's some kind of balanced solution we could come to?
Personally, I would like to have them completely removed, but if it was a huge issue, I think having a separate menu that people could potentially request, but I don't think that it should be advertised that the option is there. So it's just you ask, oh, do you have them? But I think it should be made more difficult to get them than it should be to not have them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that would actually be quite a good compromise.
Exactly.
Adelaide, thank you so much for your honesty and your bravery this morning. Real pleasure to have you join us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Now, a bit of breaking news just to bring to you. The body of a second woman has been found in the search for sisters Eliza and Henrietta Hootsie, who went missing in Aberdeen last month, Police Scotland has said. Sam Francis will bring you a full update on that at the top of the next hour.
Yes, well, still to come, we'll be celebrating the new lunar year ahead of the parade throughout London later on. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure. No worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
There's some pretty unsettled weather in central parts of the Mediterranean this weekend. Strong winds to go along with the heavy rain. Also a band of rain sweeping across parts of Spain, Portugal and into France as we go through tomorrow. Even some hill snow mixed in with this. But it's in the central Med where we have the heaviest rain, the strongest winds affecting parts of Italy, Greece, even the north of Africa as well. But as we go into next week, there will be a lot of dry and often sunny weather around. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Up next, we will be joined by an expert to explore traditional gifts and food as we welcome the year of the wood snake. This is Saturday Morning Live on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Have you noticed that more and more stores are closing? Well, last year, apparently 13,000 stores closed for the last time on the high street.
Well, experts warn the worst is still to come for our small businesses.
Well, let's talk to retail expert Jeremy Baker. Good morning to you, Jeremy. How bad is it and what can be done?
Well, nothing can be done about it. Retail is like that. It's a boom and bust operation. So last year, let's say you had a shop and it was booming, This year, the consumer can just change their mind. They don't need to come back to your shop ever again.
Well, it is sad, Jeremy, because our high streets are the beating heart of our communities, aren't they? And for many people, I know I can relate to my high street, it is such a depressing sight, walking down there and seeing them all boarded up and closed down.
But how often do you walk down that boarded up high street? I think people move on to something else. The online world is very big. Yeah. And lots of other things are very exciting. And so people, you know, the shop, I like to go to my GP in a shopping centre and get my tests done there rather than tramp off all the way to the GP, for example. And children could go to little schools in the high street. I've seen that happen already. So lots of things could happen to the high street. It could be much more a social centre. Much more kind of like pubs, coffee shops, all that. Charities. I don't see anything wrong with charities taking over, but the idea of the shop-centred high street finished, that's gone. Never coming back. Goodbye. It's not sad, it's just life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, Wednesday was the start of the Lunar New Year as the year of the wood snake began.
Yes, it did. Well, later on today, London will play host to the biggest celebrations outside Asia to usher in the new year, with hundreds of thousands of people set to descend on the West End to enjoy a parade, a lion dance performance and some traditional Chinese food. Sounds good. Sounds like a good Saturday,
sounds like a good night out now. To join us to share more about the celebrations is Molly Jan. Molly, thank you for joining us in the studio. Now, first of all,
you've brought quite the spread with you.
Yes. Once again, we've got quite a lot of good stuff on the table here.
That's right.
So what have we got here? Just talk us through what you've brought in today.
Right. So first of all, as you know, we're Year of the Snake.
Correct.
Oh, no,
it's all gone.
That's why that mug goes there, causing trouble.
Cute. Yes.
That's our snake, is it? There he is.
So we go through the...
we'll just leave the snake.
He's not behaving.
Yes. So with Chinese New Year, people celebrate, obviously, with a lot of... firstly, people like food.
Don't we all?
Right? So fortune cookies, you know, as well. So that's...
Can we... I was going to say... I'm going to go for this one.
I'll go for this
It's very
one
important which one you go for. So talk to us a bit about the history of the fortune cookie when we delve in.
Yeah, so people make a fortune cookie, probably have good wishes inside. So for like guests coming to the house and people make like very low traditional food and give a good wishes. And
so I'll read what I've got. Don't be afraid, take that big step. Ooh,
that's
wow.
Ooh, that's a fortune in front of you.
Confident. There we go.
There you go.
So Adam, what have you got in yours?
So you have a reputation for being straightforward and honest.
Oh, well, that's a very nice one.
I like that.
Straightforward, certainly, I think.
No nonsense talk. There we go. And fantastic. So that's the fortune cookie. I think everyone will be pretty familiar with that. Everyone will have had a few fortune cookies in their times. Now, this is the exciting stuff.
That's a beautiful food. So generally, we say in China, so generally in north of China, people have dumplings. But because I come from south of China, Guangxi province, we generally have the gluten rice bowl.
Okay.
Okay, sweets.
So that's the one at the front just there. I'm just seeing if we can... So that just at the front, in front of the red dish. Oh, there we are. She's done this before. Oh, she's just taken it. Here we go.
That's a...
So these are rice?
That's a rice gluten.
Okay.
So would you like to try a little bit?
I will
Normally
try.
people like have a little colourful, make it like looks lovely. And
shall I just try a little one maybe?
Come on, Sophie, come on.
I'm just thinking in terms of...
Maybe Adam can try the big one.
Well, we'll give it a go.
Okay.
I did eat some jellied eel earlier this week, and that wasn't quite so good, so I'm going to make up for it.
Have a little bite.
It tastes like rice, but a little bit sweeter.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
I quite like that. I thought maybe with the texture, I wasn't sure, but it's nice.
Yeah.
You go on, you get one of those big ones.
Have a surprise. Have a big bite and have a surprise.
Look at this. Adam. Okay, we'll leave him to chew that for a minute.
That's right.
So these are traditional to your part of China. You say the southern province.
In the south of China.
And then in the northern part of China, they would perhaps more have dumplings. And what is it that we've got? Oh, shall I try a dumpling?
Try the dumplings.
Oh, hello.
Well,
so you did bring chopsticks.
That's
try my chopsticks.
Yeah.
I've still got quite a lot to go through here, so
oh, dearie
it's maybe
me.
a small bite.
Okay. I'm... Let's see if I can
have a go for.
Oh, dearie me. Oh, see, now I've embarrassed myself here. Oh, no, there we go.
You'll be fine, you'll be fine. Oh.
I love dumplings.
Oh. That's good.
I tried to swallow it all at once.
Oh, wow.
Do you
so
know
this
what?
got the black sesame inside the
Yeah, you can taste
bowl.
this. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
It's really nice, yeah. I think in future what I would do is maybe cut it in half. That might be the approach.
Have you seen the black sesame? Like, yes.
I want to move on to the red envelopes because this, to me, is the most iconic part of Chinese New Year.
Right.
So talk to us about the tradition of the red envelopes.
So generally, it's the older generation give the red envelope with money inside for children.
Right.
So to give them a wish in the new year ahead. So we're like grow quicker, have happily, health, you know, so...
Shall I hold up a couple of these?
Yeah. So that's got different now. They've got different.
So I'm hoping you've put some money in here for us, Molly.
I should do. I should have. Like you mentioned a bit.
There we are. You can see just there. They're absolutely beautiful, so ornately done. I love those.
Yeah, it's got like lots of patterns.
And what else have you brought for us today?
That's for you, Anna.
Oh, thank you so much.
So that's the very traditional Chinese Chinese knot with a full character inside. So it means good wishes.
Good wishes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm gonna eat that. I love that.
That's fantastic.
And then, you've got you brought so much.
That's a lot.
We've got a lot
That's the Chinese. So this is the couplets that people normally put it on the both side of the door.
Okay.
So this is with the Chinese, right? So
I'll hold. Shall we hold up one each?
There we are.
There we go.
Back, the other way.
Oh dear.
So it's like this.
So what does that? If I were to read that, what does that?
I have to read like that.
Oh, you would hold it down.
I'll hold it straight.
Yeah, so hold it straight.
Oh, okay.
But this one, you can hold it like in the... like that.
Like that?
So this is the 福满人间, which means the good luck and happiness, wealth around the whole world.
I'll take a bit of that.
I must say.
A little bit of that.
Yeah, so that's one of traditional. Every household will put on that. And sometimes they will put this one, which is I mentioned, in the middle of the character.
Okay.
Yes. So people put on the middle of the door. Put in the middle of the door.
Oh, and that's the character that's there.
Yeah,
that's a full, yes.
Okay, perfect. Now, we're running out of time. For our viewers at home, would you be able to quickly teach us how to say Happy Chinese New Year?
新年快乐。新年快乐。
新年快乐。
快乐。
新年快乐。
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 Yes.
Well, there we are.
Oh, we'll be fine. 新年快乐。
新年快乐.
There we go.
Perfect. There you go.
To all of our viewers at home and to you, Molly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
新年快乐.
新年快乐.
There we are.
So we're going to celebrate the Chinese New Year in Chinatown tomorrow. So hopefully,
well, a big celebration, and we've got lots more to come on the show, including all the latest from the world of sports, more of today's top stories, and we'll also be joined by TV fashion journalist Susanna Constantine. So lots to come, Adam.
A lot to get through, but don't go anywhere. This is Saturday Morning Live.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. This weekend is going to be often cloudy for many, rain at times in the northwest, but we will see occasional brighter spells coming through. We have a ridge of higher pressure towards the south that brings settled conditions, but across the northwest, a squeeze in the isobars and some frontal systems as well. So through the rest of the afternoon, then we hold on to this blanket of cloud across central parts of England towards the southeast as well. Could be thick enough for some patchy drizzle at times. Across Northern Ireland and Scotland, cloudy here with some light rain and drizzle, but in between there will be a slither of sunshine across Wales and Northern England. Otherwise, temperatures generally around average, but chilly underneath the low cloud. Now, as we go through Saturday evening, you can see some frontal systems out towards the west. But across Scotland tonight, holding on to cloudy skies, still with some rain at times and some gales, especially across the Outer Hebrides. A murky picture across Northern Ireland as well, with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. A slither of clear skies across Wales and northern parts of England, but hold on to a lot of cloud elsewhere. Now, as we go through Saturday evening, we start to see this band of heavy rain moving in from the west, so turning increasingly wet and windy across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, holding on to a lot of cloud elsewhere, but we start to see some drier air coming up from the near continent. So across the southeast in particular, it will be turning colder with clear skies and a touch of frost to start Sunday morning. So a cold but bright start across the southeast of England on Sunday morning, but that band of heavy rain will continue to slowly push in from the west, affecting parts of Scotland and then northern parts of England and parts of Wales with outbreaks of rain. In between, though, we will see some brighter skies, but temperatures generally around average. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day. Through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning to you. I'm Adam Cherry alongside the wonderful Sophie Reaper, and this is Saturday Morning Live.
It is indeed. It's so great to have your company with us this morning, and once again, an action-packed show for you this Saturday morning.
Always is. Now, today, the freeze on alcohol duty sadly ends, with drinkers set to face what some are calling a double whammy tax grab. We'll be speaking to a landlord to find out the reaction from inside the industry.
We will indeed. It's also the funeral of celebrated pop legend Linda Nolan this morning, the ceremony of which is currently taking place in Blackpool. Our reporter Jack Carson is there as members of the public stand outside the church.
Well, this funeral now underway. Moments of reflection have just been had. We've heard of Linda's courage, of her laughter and her impact on this town.
And we might now be in February. We made it through January, we did it. But what is the key to maintaining those New Year's health goals and habits? Well, TV fashion journalist Susanna Constantine will join us to share her secrets.
And a petition has been launched to introduce a statutory levy on bookmakers to help fund better welfare and investment in greyhound racing. We'll be joined live in the studio by some beautiful retired greyhounds who are looking for a new home. So get ready if you're ready to adopt, because you might be unable to resist.
No, because they're coming home with me, so don't worry about it. We have all of the day's top stories with former Conservative advisor Lauren McEvitt and political commentator Nikki Hodson.
Welcome to Saturday Morning Live here on GB News.
I'm really looking forward to those greyhounds, by the way. This is going to be the best segment ever.
All week, haven't you? Been so excited.
Yeah, well, I just love dogs so much. And yeah, they are up for adoption, but as I say, there's a one-bed flat in central London, which is going to be occupying them very soon anyway, so don't worry about it. Both of them, yeah.
Duchess and Vieira, they're called, aren't they? They're both so beautiful. We've seen some pictures. So if you're a fan of greyhounds, or if you're a fan of dogs or animals even, then make sure you tune in, especially if you're Year of the Dog in the Chinese New Year. There you go. That's a good segue, isn't it?
A very good segue. We're Year of the Ox, both Year of the Ox.
But this year, Year of the Snake.
The wood snake.
The wood snake.
The wood snake.
To the wood snakes out there. Yes.
Now, of course, we want to hear from you, so don't forget to send your thoughts in. We love to hear what you think. As always, send your comments to gbnews.com/your say.
But before all of that, the wonderful Sam Francis has all of your latest headlines.
Very good morning to you. It's just after 11 o'clock. We start this hour with breaking news from Aberdeen, where a second body has been found near the River Dee in the search for two missing sisters there. Eliza and Henrietta Hootsie, both aged 32, were last seen near Victoria Bridge on the 7th of January. The first body was recovered from the river on Friday morning. The second, we now know, has been found near the same location yesterday evening. Formal identification is still yet to take place, but the family have been informed. Both sisters were originally from Hungary and had lived in Scotland for 10 years. Police say there are no apparent suspicious circumstances and that inquiries are ongoing. Meanwhile, in the United States, a medical plane has crashed in a crowded Philadelphia neighbourhood, killing all 6 people on board, including, sadly, a young patient and her mother. The Jet Rescue Air Ambulance erupted into a fireball just 30 seconds after takeoff, engulfing several homes in flames. An investigation is now underway with officials from the National Transportation Safety Board on the scene. It comes just days after a plane collided with a US Army helicopter near Washington, D.C. In that incident, 64 people died and 3 were killed on the helicopter. Here, meanwhile, the Met Police are deploying extra officers in London as opposing protests over Tommy Robinson are set to clash today. Robinson supporters will march from Waterloo Station to Whitehall, while anti-racism protesters head from Piccadilly to Trafalgar Square. Police say pedestrian access will be restricted and people should avoid the area if they're not involved. It comes as Robinson is currently serving an 18-month prison sentence for breaching a High Court injunction. The Met says officers are prepared to intervene swiftly if any disorder breaks out. And an update on the situation in the Middle East now, where Hamas and Israel are exchanging hostages and prisoners today in the fourth swap of a fragile ceasefire in Gaza. In Tel Aviv, supporters were seen clapping and throwing their hands in the air as they watched the last of 3 hostages cross the border into Israel earlier today. And in exchange, 182 Palestinian prisoners are expected to be freed, some serving life sentences. We have, in the last few minutes, seen 25 of those Palestinian prisoners arrive in the West Bank on a bus from prison. And those releases come as Gaza's Rafah crossing has reopened for the first time since May last year, allowing injured Palestinians to cross into Egypt. Family and friends are gathered in Blackpool this morning to celebrate Linda Nolan's remarkable life. Members of the public applauded as a pink coffin arrived at St Paul's Church, where Linda married her husband and also said goodbye to him in 2007. The Nolan sisters have described Linda as a symbol of hope, of humour and resilience, with donations being raised for Trinity Hospice in her memory. Earlier, as you can see there, Loose Women's Colleen Nolan was wiping away a tear as she joined her sisters Anne, Maureen and Denise to line the path for the floral-topped coffin, followed by the family. And just before I hand you back to Sophie and Adam, Lidl is recalling 2 mini pretzel products after warning they may cause a burning sensation when eating. The recall covers Alpenfest-style salted mini pretzels, there you go, coated in milk or dark chocolate, according to the Food Standards Agency. Customers are urged to return any packs with the best before date of 30th of June 2025. You can get a full refund. The FSA says the snacks could cause discomfort and may be unsafe to eat. I should not have had those pretzels for breakfast. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Sam Francis. If you see him coughing and spluttering later on in the day, I think we'll all know why. It's those pesky pretzels. We can hear him there in the background. Thank you very much, Sam. Now, Brits will see the price of an alcohol rise as a hike in alcohol duty and tax comes into effect today.
Now, the alcohol tax will rise in line with the retail price index at 3.6%. But a new system will also be introduced that will see wines and spirits taxed based on their strength. Well, joining us now is the landlord of the Dog at Wingham, Mark Bridgen. Mark, thank you for joining us. First of all, what is the impact this will have on your business and your customers? How bad is this going to be?
Well, it's just another cost. And, you know, I've been on here a number of times talking about the costs that are killing our industry. We're not going to be passing any more costs on to our customers. You know, we're already struggling to get enough people through the door. And so we will be absorbing it. And which is just going to make it even tougher for our business. Yeah, it's just another cost that the government are putting on the hospitality industry. And then in a few months, we've got a couple of months now, the huge rise in national insurance, which is really crippling. You know, there's businesses that are already closing down in preparation because they know they can't get through March, April when the NI comes. So yeah, the duty. It's just another kick for the hospitality industry.
Mark, obviously our pubs have had an incredibly difficult time of it in the last few years alone, many of them being forced to close down. Obviously this isn't going to help the situation, but what needs to happen now to try and support our pubs a little bit better?
Well, I've been on here with you and your colleagues a number of times. In my mind, a decrease in VAT for hospitality would, you know, they did it, the government did it through COVID on food and accommodation. You know, I don't think it should be on alcohol, but on soft drinks, food, accommodation, decreasing the VAT position would put some margin into what we're doing and would enable, I think, many pubs and hospitality businesses in general to survive. And it wouldn't be enabling us to make profits. Survival and small profit is what we're looking at the moment. Just this week, last Monday, I was at the Estrella Dam Top 50 Gastropub Awards. So that's bringing together some of the the best pubs, operators, chefs in the country, and we are all feeling the same pain. The costs are killing us, and because the public's disposable income, is under serious pressure because of inflation, utilities, and now interest rates. The costs are killing us on one side, and then less footfall, less business. It's the perfect storm. And, even the big name, Sainsbury's, closing the hospitality side of their business, all of their cafes, because they're just not financially viable anymore. And it's from the massive down to, the relatively small. My best friend owns the Copper Rivet Distillery in Chatham, and they've just shut their bar restaurant, which is a phenomenal product in an amazing place, but they just can't carry the losses anymore.
Well, Mark Bridgen, best of luck to you. Thank you for joining us live on GB News. That was Mark Bridgen there. Now, Jack Carson went out and about to ask the public what they thought about the incoming price hikes to alcohol. This is what he found out earlier today.
It's another expense what this government have put us through, really, isn't it?
It's another step backwards as far as I'm concerned for Joe Public.
A lot of people nowadays are having their own home bars. Like, it's a very common thing where people are building bars in the back garden. Works out cheaper per pint than going out for a drink or going to like a supermarket and buying a can.
Every supermarket you go into will have an offer on. They always do. It doesn't matter how much it goes up or how much it goes down.
It's one of your few pleasures. It's a bit nasty, really.
Well, it affects all of us, doesn't it? It affects those businesses and it affects the everyday person who perhaps likes to have a drink. We'll bring in our ladies. Thanks for joining us once again. What do we make of this? I mean, a glass of wine, a glass of gin, it's some people's one of their only pleasures in life, and maybe it's been taken away.
Oh, I don't know what to think about this. I mean, it's interesting because my husband used to work in the hospitality business. He owned 5 bars, which he's actually now sold. And whenever I see these stories, I'm glad that we've got rid of them because hospitality has just been battered over the past few years. It's the 5th largest sector in the UK, and yet it's treated as a kind of second-class citizen when it comes to business. And I can't help feeling there's a slightly gendered element to this because, I mean, I feel like more women drink wine and spirits.
Well, I like a glass of red.
I'm always curious about how the price of beer is always protected, right? Because
so they're taking a penny off the pint.
And who's bothered about
that? How much do you have to drink for that?
Listen, with enough
if you do the Centurion Challenge with pints, you get a full £1 off. Well done.
But it's something like
maybe, but
70p on a bottle of wine. 70p.
But there's an advertising executive called Rory Sutherland who runs Ogilvy, who does a lot of interesting kind of lectures on stuff like this, and he was talking about wine being.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you. We're going to just go now live to Blackpool, where I think we can see live pictures of the coffin exiting St Paul's Church there in Blackpool. Yes, we can indeed see that pink glittery coffin carrying Linda Nolan following that funeral service taking place there this morning.
It's very sad, and of course, as we said earlier, you can just see the sheer number of people there hoping to get in and pay tribute to Linda Nolan is really a testament to how popular she was and the work that she did, particularly the charity work. We chatted to Stephanie Tecci earlier, didn't we, about the work she did, and you see she's going into the hearse there. And the amount of money she raised for charitable causes is really just unbelievable. It's probably the biggest part of her legacy, I'd say.
And it's always really lovely at these kind of events when you hear people who really knew her speaking about her life and her legacy. We heard one guest saying that she always had a smile on her face, and that's something that was echoed by Steph Tecci, wasn't it? That whenever she saw Linda, she always had a smile on her face, and she did so much work for charity. And like you say, just by the sheer volume of members of the public who weren't able to get a seat inside the church today, they were just happy to stand outside and pay tribute to the life and legacy of Linda Nolan.
Well, we'll be bringing you more live footage from this throughout the day. We're going to return to our panel now. Guys, we're just going to return to the stories we were discussing discussing. Actually, shall we jump to our next story? Because I think we've got to the bottom of the alcohol price rise. It seems like
it's solved.
It's solved. We've figured it out. A penny off the pint. Good news for me. And
not so good for the rest of us.
70p on wine. Not fantastic. Now, Nikki, we want to talk about what's in the Times today. So, Labour accused of dropping the ball on AstraZeneca scheme. So, tell us a little bit about that. That's quite a big money spin that we've lost here, isn't it?
Gosh, it is. So AstraZeneca were going to build a £450 million plant near Liverpool. And Keir Starmer quibbled over the amount of public money that was going to be contributed to this project. So he wanted to cut down the pledged 90 million to 40 million. And AstraZeneca have turned around and said, no, we're not interested and we're not going to build it anymore. So they'll take their business elsewhere. And this comes just after, days of Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, saying, Britain's open for business.
Growth.
That's
the key word, isn't it?
Life sciences in particular are welcome in this country. It's just a load of rubbish.
I was going to ask both of you guys, actually, your thoughts on this sudden gear change that the Chancellor and the Prime Minister are having in the last week or so about their attitude, their optimism, their newfound optimism.
It's like they finally worked out you can't tax your way to prosperity. I mean, we've been trying to tell them this for quite a while on the right end of the spectrum, but no, they finally worked out that people have to build things in order for there to be tax to be taken to begin with.
But we were talking earlier about the Employment Rights Bill, and is there a tension between their attitude towards growth on the one hand from the Treasury and the Chancellor,
and Ed Miliband on the other?
Other members of the Cabinet. You said it. But Ed Miliband and others, other members of the Cabinet fighting for their corner as well.
Absolutely, and that's what's going to be fascinating about Rachel Reeves saying, the Treasury is going for growth and I am approving Heathrow. That's great. Theresa May already approved Heathrow. This was already in the works. If you've managed to get the planning department to get its act together, well done. But I didn't notice Angela Rayner at that particular announcement. I didn't notice Ed Miliband at the...
Ed Miliband certainly wasn't there,
Exactly.
was he?
No.
They are the two biggest blocks to economic growth in this country because we can't build and we can't invest in energy if the pair of them don't get their act together. And Ed Miliband is about to bury our plutonium stock instead of investing in nuclear power in this country, which is insane.
To be fair to Ed Miliband, though,
really?
He really came a cropper with them pulling the green energy, the great British green energy project that they had, remember? Before the election, that was touted as his big project. Everybody's going to own a bit of British energy.
There was a lot said before the election, which was very quickly junked, I think, wasn't there?
But the reason I'm pointing this out is that he was promised a big gig, wasn't he? He was promised this growth project, and then obviously that was pulled. So of course he's going to block things.
Of course he's going to block other growth things like nuclear power. On the same day, by the way, that we've got a consultation coming out of the Environment and Farming Department saying that we may need to lose 18% of farming land in this country to nature preservation projects, including tree planting, which the Welsh Government tried in the last 5 years and fundamentally failed at. It's insane how they are treating the countryside. It's insane how they're treating food producers. And all of that knocks on to how that poor man runs his pub. All of that knocks on to what you buy at a supermarket and how much it costs. They have no idea of how to bring growth to this country, and they think they can tax their way to it.
Just very quickly, we're going to jump onto one more story. We've got a few minutes. Where else do we want to go,
I wanted to ask, we've heard about Labour, we've heard about the Tories. I want to ask you both about this reform poll surge. Seems like they're really coming through now, doesn't it? What do you both make of that?
I think Nigel Farage has plenty of opportunity between now and the next general election to screw things up.
Oh, I didn't think that's where you were going to go.
That was a swerve. Wow.
I think,
but also plenty of time to build momentum.
Yeah, he does.
So how will he screw it up? That's interesting.
Oh, he will accidentally select a candidate who it turns out is a really big fan of Hitler, or
accidental fascist.
Well, you saw. I think it's the chairman of the party on Question Time earlier this week having to defend the candidates they picked at the last election, many of whom were slightly infringing.
Which is interesting.
And some of whom were fake, weren't they?
Yeah, we've seen Nigel Farage himself at that conference yesterday and has done throughout the last few weeks, admitting that was a bit of a disaster. That vetting process just did not exist, and they are paying a price for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They need to get on top of it, right? Guys, thank you very much for joining us. We've zoomed through quite a lot there, but we appreciate you coming on. Yeah, absolutely. Now, we're giving you two chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we have two amazing prize bundles, to be won.
Yes, each bundle contains a brand new iPhone, £500 to spend in your favourite store, and a whopping £10,000 in tax-free cash.
So if you fancy your chance to be one of our two winners, here are all the details you need to follow.
The Great British Giveaway is officially 1 year old, and we have a birthday treat for you. We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For a chance to win an iPhone, vouchers and £10,000 in cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Just going to show you pictures from a short time ago of friends and family leaving the church following the funeral ceremony for Linda Nolan. It's just wrapped up there, and you can see thousands of people, at least hundreds of people there in front of the church. A huge celebration for her life, and as we said, it's all about her legacy, isn't it? The amount of charity work she did, how popular she was in Blackpool and across the country as well.
Absolutely, and the funeral ceremony has now finished, but I believe the family will now go on to the crematorium for the next stage of that funeral. But as you say, Adam, hundreds of people there gathered outside St Paul's Church in Blackpool to celebrate the life of Linda Nolan, dubbed the Queen of Blackpool.
Absolutely. Now, up next, TV fashion journalist Susanna Constantine will be live to share her top tips to a happier and healthier 2025. She will reveal all her secrets next. This is Saturday Morning Live, only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
It's the body image thing that concerns me. It's young girls watching Love Island and really skinny girls and young boys
hit the gym after this. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, they're seeing perfect bodies on the screen.
You don't need to go in the gym, Maymoon. You look gorgeous as you are, love.
I know. You see, the reason I don't enter anything like that, Carrie, is you're
going to win.
Exactly. And it's not fair. It's not fair, I think, on everybody else being there.
It's not fair.
No.
So, Kerry, what do you think about the body image thing? You know, when you talk about your daughter, is that something that you'd worry about, her comparing herself to the likes of what she sees on the screen?
Now, this is where there's a conflict of interest for me, because I've been brought up in this industry since I was 17, so it's massively affected me. I mean, when you're put on the front cover of magazines after having a baby with a stretch mark in the circle of shame, you know, it does do a psychological effect on you. I think a lot of celebrities who've been around for so many years as I have been affected by that. But everyone has to bear in mind, I've had my children. I'm in my 40s. I feel I'm entitled to have my tweaks and try and improve on what I think are going down south, and health and safety, tripping over any things that I don't want to be tripping over anymore. But I definitely do believe, I mean, majority of the young girls that go on Love Island, they all have the same big lips, the same big eyelashes, all the butt implants, and they're barely in their 20s. You know, it's if you go to the airport now, I remember going to the airport and I looked around and all the girls looked exactly the same.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're
proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. A pleasure to have your company as always. Now, as we welcome in February, you might find yourself back in a winter slump and stuck with how to get back to a happier, healthier you for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so how can we motivate ourselves to get back on track? Well, with us now to spill her secrets is TV fashion journalist Susanna Constantine. Susanna, thank you for joining us. Did you have a New Year's resolution? How are things looking on your end?
My resolution, it's lovely to see you both, by the way. My New Year's resolution was to have no New Year's resolution, because I think we just set ourselves up for failure, and we set these sort of changes that are so huge that we don't stick to them. So for me, it's like every day is a kind of affirmation of a resolution. So it's kind of little and often. And I've been doing things little and often for a long time, like taking Simprove to help my gut health, drinking a lot of water. I wake up in the morning, I go outside, rain or shine, and just see the morning emerge. And if I don't, and I make my bed every morning, as soon as I get out, and if I do those 4 things, I start the day really well. I know I've got it in the bag, and then tomorrow is another day.
Completely agree with you, Susanna. I think making my bed is like the first thing I do in the morning. But I will say my other half is always griefing me for not drinking enough water. So maybe that's something I need to do more of now.
I find that so weird, Sophie, because it's like Simprove did this research, and the top 3 resolutions that people made was to save money, fair enough, to exercise more, fair enough, to drink more water. And I find that extraordinary that, we don't drink, as a nation, we don't drink enough water.
Hands up. I know. I've been trying to drink more. I've actually got water in my mug today.
Yes.
So I'm continuing to drink it. Exactly. I am trying to drink more. Now, we've had a bit of a grim January, haven't it? It's been a very long month. It seems like payday was weeks and weeks and weeks away. We've had that horrible weather, all that snow. Yeah. For anyone at home who's feeling a bit down, a bit drab, a bit in the winter blues, what can we be doing other than making our bed and drinking water?
I do think getting outside is absolutely fundamental to our well-being. Just getting outside, and it's hard to find the sun, you're right, at the moment. But even, when it's raining, just getting outside and taking in the air, whether you live in a city or the countryside, that just gives one a boost. So for me, that is the most important thing, is to get outside every single day. And it sounds so simple. And a lot of the things that, we're told to do are things that our grandmothers told us. It's like all the kind of basic tips and really good advice has got swamped by media saying, you've got to do this, you've got to go on this diet, you've got to do that. You might be 60, but you've got to look 30. And it's like, just take away all that noise and go back to basics, and don't give yourself a hard time, because you can always press the restart button the next day if you've stuck.
Yeah, so I suppose the idea is just keep it small and manageable, and therefore you're more likely to achieve those goals and feel good about them. Susanna, can you tell us a little bit about this cold water therapy that you do? What's going on with that?
Well, this is something I started doing during COVID, and me and a friend of mine, probably illegally, would drive down to the coast by Brighton, and I discovered Wim Hof, who is also known as the Iceman. And we started going. We started in September and then carried on through, and we haven't stopped. But life takes over, and it's quite about 20-minute drive. So I've also now got a barrel, which is a huge sherry barrel, and I fill it up with cold water, and I just get into that every day and sit there freezing my tits off. But what's so beautiful about it is that you only have to do it for 30 seconds to 10 minutes, and the impact is so much larger than the act itself. And it's really,
I've heard a lot of good things about cold water plunging. I know quite a few people who've done that. It seems like it's all the rage online as well. So drinking water, Sitting in cold water. Is there anything else we can be doing with what? Should we be swimming more? What else can we do with that water?
I think when it comes to cold water, just have a shower in the morning, a bit hot, and then just turn it slowly to cold and keep it cold for 30 seconds. Now, we can all do that. And it just empowers you so much, and your adrenaline starts pumping, your immune system is improved. And if you do that coupled with taking Simprove, which has billions and billions of live bacteria, which are designed to reach your gut alive. If you do so, you look after your engine and you look after your cardiovascular system by getting into cold water. You won't get ill. Well, I'm only speaking from experience, but you won't get sniffles and colds. So that is my winter routine.
Well, Susanna, thank you very much for joining us, Susanna. Good luck with those cold water plunges. I think 10 minutes is a little bit too long for me.
Yes.
30 seconds maximum.
We should say as well that other brands are available.
Yes, and apology for the colourful language earlier there. I think we got a bit excited. Now, lots more still to come on the show today. But first, of course, let's get the news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom. It is exactly 11:30. Let's bring you a recap of that breaking news in the last hour or so, that a second body has now been found near the River Dee in the search for two missing sisters in Aberdeen. Eliza and Henrietta Hertzie were both 32 and last seen near Victoria Bridge on the 7th of January. The first body was recovered from the river on Friday morning, and the second, we now know, has been found in the same location yesterday evening. Formal identification is yet to take place, but their family has been informed. The sisters, originally from Hungary, had lived in Scotland for 10 years, and police say there is no apparent suspicious circumstances regarding their disappearance, and inquiries are now ongoing. Let's turn now to the United States and bring you some live pictures coming into us of the crash site where a medical plane disappeared and crashed into a crowded Philadelphia neighbourhood, killing all 6 people on board, including a young patient and her mother. The jet rescue air ambulance erupted into a fireball just 30 seconds after taking off and engulfed several homes in flames. An investigation is now underway, and it comes just days after a plane collided with a US Army helicopter near Washington, D.C. in a separate crash, killing 64 people on board and 3 on that US helicopter. In other news, the Met Police are deploying extra officers in London as opposing protests over Tommy Robinson are set to take place later today. Robinson supporters will march from Waterloo Station to Whitehall, while anti-racism protesters head from Piccadilly to Trafalgar Square. Police say pedestrian access will be restricted and people should avoid the area if they're not involved. It comes as Robinson is currently serving an 18-month prison sentence for breaching a High Court injunction. The Met Police say that officers are prepared to intervene swiftly if any disorder breaks out. Hamas and Israel have exchanged hostages and prisoners in the 4th swap of a fragile ceasefire in Gaza this morning. In Tel Aviv, supporters were seen clapping and throwing their hands in the air as they watched the last of 3 hostages cross the border into Israel. Meanwhile, in exchange, 182 Palestinian prisoners are set to be freed today, some serving life sentences. So far, 25 have been seen arriving in the West Bank on buses from an Israeli prison. The release comes as Gaza's Rafah crossing reopens for the first time, allowing injured Palestinians into Egypt. And family, friends and fans have turned out for the funeral of singer Linda Nolan in Blackpool this morning. As the floral-topped casket was taken from the church, members of the public applauded outside. And along with her sisters, Linda was part of the pop group The Nolans, of course known for their hit I'm in the Mood for Dancing. She died on the 15th of January at the age of 65. And it came 2 decades after she was first diagnosed with cancer. In Linda's memory, donations are being raised for Trinity Hospice, continuing her legacy of hope and resilience. Those are the latest headlines, a full roundup at the top of the hour. Now, though, I believe we can head straight back to Adam and Sophie.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. This weekend is going to be often cloudy for many, rain at times in the northwest, but we will see occasional brighter spells coming through. We have a ridge of higher pressure towards the south that brings settled conditions, but across the northwest, a squeeze in the isobars and some frontal systems as well. So through the rest of the afternoon, then we hold on to this blanket of cloud across central parts of England towards the southeast as well. Could be thick enough for some patchy drizzle at times. Across Northern Ireland and Scotland, cloudy here with some light rain and drizzle, but in between there will be a slither of sunshine across Wales and Northern England. Otherwise, temperatures generally around average, but chilly underneath the low cloud. Now, as we go through Saturday evening, you can see some frontal systems out towards the west, but across Scotland tonight, holding on to cloudy skies, still with some rain at times and some gales, especially across the Outer Hebrides. A murky picture across Northern Ireland as well, with outbreaks of rain and drizzle. A slither of clear skies across Wales and northern parts of England, but hold on to a lot of cloud elsewhere. Now, as we go through Saturday evening, we start to see this band of heavy rain moving in from the west, so turning increasingly wet and windy across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland, holding on to a lot of cloud elsewhere, but we start to see some drier air coming up from the near continent. So across the southeast in particular, it will be turning colder with clear skies and a touch of frost to start Sunday morning. So a cold but bright start across the southeast of England on Sunday morning, but that band of heavy rain will continue to slowly push in from the west, affecting parts of Scotland and then northern parts of England and parts of Wales with outbreaks of rain. In between, though, we will see some brighter skies, but temperatures generally around average. Bye-bye.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, Six Nations got underway last night. Aidan McGee is here to give us the latest. Aidan, even I know it was not a great night for Wales last night, was it?
No, it really wasn't. Adam, 43-0 they lost. That's the first time Wales had registered 0 in a Six Nations game. That's going back, 25 years now, something like that. So, look, it was always going to be a chastening night for them, I suspect, because Wales haven't been up to much at all levels of their game in the last 2 or 3 years. They did win it in 2022, but going to France, Antoine Dupont, widely considered the best player in the world right now. He's dictating things from that scrum position, and he looks absolutely imperious. And I would now, having seen France last night, albeit against a weak Wales side, I would place them just slight favourites ahead of Ireland at the moment. I would, but then Ireland might turn their performance today. You never know.
Well, you mentioned Ireland. They're obviously playing England today, so a tough start for England.
Tough start for England because it's Ireland in Dublin today at 5:15. They've got France next week as well, so they could conceivably play well and end up with 2 defeats. Let's hope not. But sometimes England are at their best when they have an underdog's tag behind them or attached to them. Also, Simon Easterby is stepping up as the Ireland coach because Andy Farrell's with the Lions at the moment. So maybe that might cause some disruption with Ireland. A full house, though, at the Aviva Stadium. England have won there relatively recently. They also beat Ireland, of course, in the Six Nations last year. So let's hope they can get something there. A new captain, Mauro Itoje, as well, stepping in. And he's also spoken about the need, just more generally. It's not often you get... I suspect it might be a little bit of a diversionary tactic, but he was suggesting that rugby, when the new TV deal comes along, it needs to remain on terrestrial television because it's had a tough time recently. The sport has. We don't talk about it quite as much as we did back in the World Cup winning days in 2003. And he thinks it's not a time for fewer eyes to be on the sport because right now it needs all the attention it can get because it's going up against juggernauts like football. And it's getting squeezed and squeezed all the time. They've had problems with the Guinness Premiership as well. I mean, you know, I never foresaw a time when the suggestions were that the Guinness Premiership, in terms of conditioning and strength and fitness, isn't producing players or isn't lending players to the international scene that are equipped for that level of rugby. This is astonishing. Imagine that happening in the Premier League. Premier League not producing players good enough for international football. I mean, like, that was probably how it was maybe 50 years ago. It certainly shouldn't be that case in elite sport right now. So let's see how things pan out. Scotland are playing today against Italy. I mean, Italy have always been the wooden spoonist, but last year finished second for bottom, so they've improved. And I think that game for Wales, having lost last night, that game for Wales next week against Italy is going to be pivotal for them if they're going to avoid the wooden spoon.
Now, you mentioned the Premier League a minute ago. I want to talk about Marcus Rashford because it's been reported that Aston Villa are interested in purchasing him. Is that likely?
Well, I think it's more than interest, actually. I think we've learned in the last couple of hours it's talks. So it's gone even further than that. Look, you look at his options. Apparently, he has turned down interest from Tottenham. They're in dire need of a striker. They're in dire need of players. They've got injuries all over the place. They haven't won in 7 Premier League games, although they are still in 3 competitions. Aston Villa, quite crucially, for the first time since 1982, offer, or in fact 1983, because they won it in 82, didn't they? They offered Champions League football. And Rashford could play. He's not played in 12 games at Man United. He wasn't even in the party to travel to Romania earlier in the week. Something has to give. Wayne Rooney has told him to leave. Roy Keane has told, didn't tell him directly, but he said in his podcast earlier this week that he should be embarrassed by the situation that he's in. Knowing football as I do, and I will see a lot of Man United, he's a player who desperately needs a move. Now, he wants to go to Barcelona. The deadline is 11 o'clock on Monday, of course. Barcelona have cost restrictions in La Liga, which means that they have to remove, Adam, 2 players from their roster, if you like, just because of the wage constraints to accommodate Rashford. Remember, he's on £325,000 per week. I don't think they'll even have to pay all of that, whoever signs him, but even if they take a half of that off Man United's wage bill, that'll be something for them, won't it?
Now, we're running out of time, but I want to quickly ask you about the Champions League. Of course, Villa, Arsenal and Liverpool through in the automatic places.
Top 8.
We also saw City scrape through, didn't they, in their game against Bruges?
Yes.
Who's looked convincing to you? Celtics as well, I should say, are also through another Scottish side there. Who looks convincing?
Well, props to Celtic, first of all, because their budget is so much lower than some of the Premier League, well, all the Premier League clubs and a good deal of many clubs around Europe as well. So while they don't look convincing, they lost 4-2 at Aston Villa. They put a good account of themselves across, actually. They're not going to... Somebody's going to go much further. They've drawn Bayern Munich. Now, glamour tie, brilliant, and it extends their Champions League campaign, but I don't think they're going to go very much further.
City have got Real, right?
Real Madrid. Now, if you're Real Madrid... You know, you might think, well, OK, the booby prize for this might be, or the prize for not qualifying quite so convincingly is that you play someone not so good. I wouldn't fancy facing Man City because they're picking up a little bit of form. They've got recent pedigree of winning. They're used to playing Real Madrid. This will be the 3rd season in a row that they face each other. I wouldn't fancy that one bit. And I think that if we're going to see a mini surprise in this round of playoffs, that might be the one. Over 2 legs, City to prevail against Real Madrid. Let's see.
Well, they looked convincing to me in that second half. Not so much in the first half against Bruges, but the second half, they really did seem to pick up a bit of pace. Aidan, thank you so much for joining us. As always, fabulous to hear from you.
Thank you for joining us, Aidan. Now, still to come. Oh my God, I'm looking forward to this.
It's the time we've all been waiting for.
We are joined in the studio by beautiful greyhounds. They're in the green room right now. Duchess and Vieira. As a new petition calls for a new levy on bookmakers to cover greyhound welfare. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations forecast.
There's some pretty unsettled weather in central parts of the Mediterranean this weekend. Strong winds to go along with the heavy rain. Also a band of rain sweeping across parts of Spain, Portugal and into France as we go through tomorrow. Even some hill snow mixed in with this. But it's in the central Med where we have the heaviest rain, the strongest winds affecting parts of Italy, Greece, even the north of Africa as well. But as we go into next week, there will be a lot of dry and often sunny weather around. See you later.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
According to a report from the RAC, many drivers see speed limits as a target rather than anything else. More than 50% of us think it's acceptable to break the speed limit.
So this morning we're asking, is it time to increase the motorway speed limit?
Let's talk to automotive journalists Danny Kelly and Steve Fowler. Gents, what a pleasure to speak to you both in one go.
I think we should join many countries in the European Union that have 130 kilometres speed limit, which is around about 81 miles an hour. I drive to London on a weekly basis, and I think the roads are capable of handling higher speeds. I think unofficially the speed limit, without getting pulled over by the local police at the time, is probably around about 78, 80 miles an hour. If a Bobby's on the motorway doing 70 miles an hour, he wants you to overtake him. He wants the free-flowing of that motorway to continue.
So should we change 70 miles an hour? You know, if people are going 80 miles an hour, just stick to 70 miles an hour as a limit. Yes, you know, it's funny when you're driving along the motorway and there's a police car going at 70 and nobody wants to overtake. But if the average is 80, just leave it at 70.
All the gantries now are fitted with the modern signage where they can change the limit at will. We all know that. It's hard to get up to 70 half the time. So, actually, we could apply those rules, couldn't we, at 80 or even 90 miles an hour and say, well, if the weather's bad, let's reduce it. If the fog's bad, let's reduce it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I hate to use this phrase, smart motorways, but they're the ones where you have the adjustable limits. They don't cover all of the motorway network, relatively small amount of the motorway network. It is a limit. You know, it's not a target, as I keep saying to my kids. God, they're bored of me saying that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, welcome back to Saturday Morning Live. Now, we are joined in the studio by a very special guest, but we'll be coming to them very shortly. Now, first, Greyhound racing has a long history in the UK, but according to the regulator, the Greyhound Board of Great Britain, its future is under threat unless they get more funding for the sport.
Yeah, they've started a petition to introduce a statutory levy on bookmakers to help fund better welfare for the dogs involved.
Yeah, our reporter Jack Carson has more on this story.
From companions on royal hunts to champion racers and, of course, beloved pets, greyhounds are ingrained into British society. But for those 12,000 determined dogs who race at tracks across the country, a petition has been launched to help protect their welfare in an uncertain future. The petition urges MPs to debate a new statutory levy on bookmakers to protect the welfare of racing greyhounds. It's part of the Keep Welfare on Track campaign, created by regulator the Greyhound Board of Great Britain. Currently, a voluntary levy sees bookmakers able to opt into a payment of 0.6% of their greyhound racing turnover. Mark Bird is the chief executive of the regulator.
Increased funding, and more sustainable funding especially, will ensure that the welfare of the dogs are paramount and are being met, but also it ensures that there's survivability of the sport. Greyhound racing next year will be 100 years old in this country, and it's a proper red wall sport that we want to see continue. And the only way we can do that is through sustainable funding.
The betting industry turned over £800 million in 2022-23, but the money paid into the levy has fallen by 67% over the last 15 years. The Greyhound Board's executive veterinarian Tiffany Blackett explains how £5 million to be received from the racing fund this year will go towards funding welfare and integrity.
We want to provide accessible veterinary care dedicated to greyhounds, and this could be through the development of centres of excellence for greyhound medicine and surgery, as well as physiotherapy, rehabilitation, preventative care, to ensure that the highest level of care is available for greyhounds during and after their racing career.
Under the proposals, the new compulsory levy would see contributions from betting companies who resemble what's seen in other sports, such as horse racing. For the trainers, it's a lifetime of dedication and often a family business passed down through generations. Jason Gray took over from his father.
It will affect us all if we don't get it, and if we don't get it, then we've got to negotiate something else to try and increase the money that's been put into the sport. You know, it's a great historic traditional sport in this country, and it'd be a crying shame if it had to stop.
A recent written statement from the Minister for Sport, Media, Civil Society and Youth, Stephanie Peacock, acknowledged the importance of greyhound racing to the nation's culture. The hope from those in this sport is that with enough signatures on the petition, this British institution can continue for years to come. Jack Carson, GB News.
Well, joining us in the studio now is Chia Eaglin and Erin Cobb from Clark's Farm Greyhound Rescue, who have brought along two very special guests. This is Duchess.
So Duchess
and
is the one I'm stroking. This is Duchess, isn't it? Our lady joining us this morning, and then over there is Vieira.
Vieira's a chap, isn't he? And Duchess is a lady. So,
talk to us about their history. Now, they used to be racing dogs, didn't they? But now they're looking for a home.
Yeah, so both of these dogs were racing greyhounds. They have retired recently. So now we are getting them ready and prepared to go into a forever home, essentially.
So anyone watching, make sure you get on the Clark's Farm website later on today, because these guys are up for adoption. And I mean,
and they are very cute.
Look how gorgeous.
Look how well behaved they are as well.
You.
They were a little bit excited when they came in because it's their first time on TV and they wanted to make a good impression.
They did.
Now
She's tired.
Now they're both looking, aren't they? They know what's up on
yawning already.
Here. Now, talk to us about greyhounds as a breed. If anyone was going to adopt a greyhound, what would they expect?
I'd say the first thing is couch potatoes. They are the most lazy dog ever.
Really? You wouldn't expect that because of the background?
Everyone has this massive misconception that they need loads of exercise, loads of walks, but they are actually, quite happy with 2 20-minute walks a day. They are so laid back. Yeah.
Easy.
As long as they're able to have their moments of madness, zoomies, they do get the sillies, of course. But once they've had that, they are so happy to just chill out on the sofa with you, usually with their legs up in the air, and we call it a roach, where they're laid like dead cockroaches.
Belly faces.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, and that's the best position for a greyhound to be in.
How old are these guys? You might mention.
So both are 2 years old, so she's going to be 3 in April and 3 in June,
Now, Erin, I'm guessing you get to work with these guys on a day-to-day basis. What's that like for you?
It's really good. Start early, get them out, feed them. But it's just nice to get to know them all. They've all got different personalities. And it's just great to see, even though some of them...
Duchess just perched on the back of your head.
Duchess is going to fall asleep. You're on TV, Duchess.
She's watching.
She's watching herself on the monitor. So she's making sure everything looks good. I think she's impressed, which is very good.
I think Vieira's just very aware that you guys have got some chicken. Vieira's a bit hungry. Vieira's want a bit more breakfast.
So very quickly, we haven't got a huge amount of time, but just very quickly, these guys, their personalities, what are they? Duchess and Vieira, what would it be like to take one of these guys?
Definitely, he's got FOMO. He loves to be involved in anything that you're doing, everything that you're doing. He is a proper foodie. Duchess, really similar, really affectionate sweetheart. Loves play. Both are really good with children as well. So, and Duchess does really well with small dogs. He's learning about small dogs as well. So
he's getting a process.
He's only been with us a little while, so he's still getting used to it. And no, exactly that. He just wants to play with everybody and be involved with everything. But yeah, definitely, if anyone's interested, call the Clarks Farm phone.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry we've run out of time. I could spend the whole hour with these guys.
I appreciate it.
We've got a little bit of time. So it's clarksfarm.org.uk. These guys, they need a permanent home, a forever home.
That's the key thing, isn't it? A forever home.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's not Christmas anymore, but dogs aren't just for a birthday or for Christmas or for Valentine's Day, whatever it might be.
No.
It's a commitment at the end of the day. They are beautiful, and looking at them, I would love to take one home. I'm not sure my cat would be thrilled, but so beautiful. But you've got to be committed to it, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we have a very thorough process to the application and doing home checks and things like that, so we would make sure that any home is suitable for the dog.
Chia, Erin, Duchess Vieira, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. And that's all we've got time for.
It is, I'm afraid.
Another Saturday Morning Live is over.
That's it. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't go anywhere, because up next it's Dawn Neeson. We will be back at the same time next week. Again, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. This weekend is going to be often cloudy for many, rain at times in the northwest, but we will see occasional brighter spells coming through. We have a ridge of higher pressure